Welcome back. As the country starts to reopen, many states are now looking at contact tracing to help control the spread of the coronavirus. Contact tracing is a method used to find and follow up with people who have been in close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. But how exactly would this work, and what are some potential problems with it? Let's bring in tech consultant and host of the podcast Think About This, Shelly Palmer, joining us now with more. Great to see you, Shelly, this morning.
Nice to see you, Kerry. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
So far, so good. So let's talk contact tracing.
Let's talk about it, because there's been a lot of discussion about it. We're hearing that contact tracers are being hired, but a lot of people are still questioning exactly what this is. So what is it?
Look, there are a lot of different technologies that can be added. Contact tracing, as you said, the goal is to trace and monitor contacts of infected people and to notify them of exposure. These are sometimes called exposure notification apps or contact tracing apps. Now, what people probably don't realize is that their location is always known. Always. Your phone knows where it is or it couldn't ring. There are literally hundreds of companies tracking your location all of the time, but it's never used for anything more than advertising. Here, what they'd like to do is they'd like to trace which phones were next to which phones, which would tell them who you were with. Now, Apple and Google have put out a really interesting specification. Apple is especially interesting because it's inside their privacy policy, meaning that no one would know it was you, and you would be notified if you were near someone within 14 days of them being infected. The problem is that they won't tell you who or where. So it's hard to understand how this would be incredibly valuable. Also, the problem with technologies like location is that they're good for latitude and longitude, but not so good for altitude. So let's say you stopped on the street and were talking to Aunt Edna, and she was on the second floor yelling down at you, "How are you?" And you were 20 feet apart from a distance perspective, but closer than 6 feet because you were standing underneath. The phones don't know. I mean, they can, but they generally don't know the altitude. So that would be a false positive. I can think of hundreds of false positive examples where you would be within the appropriate proximity, but not necessarily next to the person. Your back would be to them, or you'd be far enough away where it actually wouldn't matter. So the technology for this is far, and I mean far from perfect. The ability to get a false positive is pretty significant. And also, there's a bigger question, Kerry, and it's not a technology question, and I might not be the right person to ask it, but do we want to live in a world where everybody knows where you are 100% of the time?
Well, that's a question that comes up with anything related to our location on our phones. Of course, the privacy concerns are there, Shelly.
Very dramatically. And here, it's not just your location, it's your location to another person. So I don't know, once you give anyone the rights to do that, I'm not sure you get them back. And I'm also not sure who you should trust with the data. The technology, generally, I would say to you, is very easy. In this case, it's not very easy. The technology itself exists, but it's never been used for this application. And it's certainly never been tested this way. It's one thing, are you near Macy's? Are you near a store? Are you close to a McDonald's? Or, sure, that's very easy to do. It can be accurate to within, 100 or 200 yards, and it's going to work fine. Yeah. But here we're talking about, were you inside a 2 meters with somebody, and did you talk to them, and could you potentially have been? This is more than the technology is capable of right this moment. It's also a lot more information than we have ever given to anything or anyone. So I'd think twice.
All right, Shelly Palmer, thanks so much for your insight. As always, great to see you.